evening and welcome to the West Canada Valley Board of Education meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any questions on the consent agenda?
Warrants? Yes. Page 12. Number 49633. The South Central College Virtual Institutes registration.
That's a,
It says $700 and then we liquidated $2,700.
Yeah, that's the ag grant for the ag program.
What?
That's the agricultural grant that we got for our ag program here, so that's paid for through a grant. So all that money is given to us through that for her to implement our ag program here. So it's of no cost to us.
She's not taking courses or anything.
No, it's all part of the growth of this ag program. Yep, and it's all through that grant we got through that.
So,
okay, thank you. All right, administration reports, Felix. Right.
So this past year, the 2021 DOT year, we finished at 100% DOT pass rate. We're all done with the field trips for this year. Our senior trip was the other day, quite a lengthy one. Everything went well, just a little nervous because of the distance. But also our newer buses, just so everyone knows, we actually have 11 miles a gallon on our trip, which is unheard of in us.
How many?
11, which in the past used to be about 7 to 8. So the newer buses have gotten better at fuel mileage, which is good with fuel prices right now. Also, we're starting to set up the summer runs. We're going to have about 7 bus runs running this summer between summer school special programs and the summer school year.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just had a question about, do we typically ride all the way to Niagara Falls in school bus?
So the answer to that, and Mr. Broadbent could add into that, there was, typically we would coach bus that.
Right.
Yeah, so, but the cost of that this year with everything that went on with fundraising and the senior class and what they were able to do and things like that, it just became a little bit too, or not cost effective for them to do it, so we were able to work out a plan, but yes, typically we do not. Yeah, usually the senior class, if they do go on that trip, will have enough that they've raised for a coach bus. Yeah.
that's $63.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, paying for what they paid for, this was the only option.
Gotcha.
Mr. Dorr?
We just wrapped up spring sports, which brought our sporting calendar to a close for the year. All things considered, I think it went pretty well. We went from the fall where we had 2 spectators per athlete, to the winter where we had no spectators at all, to the spring where we started 2 spectators and then closed with 500 spectators. So depending on the week and what happened at the state level, we were never quite sure what was happening, but all in all, it went really, really well. The parents, the spectators, everybody followed the guidelines very well. Kids showed up. We didn't have any COVID-related incidents as far as our athletics were concerned. We played the season pretty much unscathed by all that, so I consider it all a success for the year. In the fall, cross-country girls were league champions. In the winter, we had both basketball teams played very, very well. I mean, we finished at the top of their schedules when they weren't technically leagues, so we can't declare anything there. And then in the spring, girls varsity track and boys varsity baseball were both league champions. Boys varsity baseball made all the way to the sectional final, lost to Beaver River there. And actually the girls varsity track team actually took second place to Beaver River at their sectional event too. So, but all in all, it was a pretty successful year. Fall schedules are all completed already. We'll have the boys and girls soccer tournament again, the opening weekend of school. Boys side of the tournament, Sherburne, Camden, and Canastota. And the girls side is Old Fort, Notre Dame, and Sherburne. For the winter sports, and all this is available on Schedule Galaxy if you want to look at it too. The basketball schedules are nearly complete at this point. The only thing we're doing is trying to lock down the last team for our boys holiday tournament. And new this year is we're going to actually host the girls tip-off tournament too at the beginning of the season. And the 4 teams we're going to bring in for that will be Brookfield, Sherburne, and Westmoreland. And that's going to be the weekend after Thanksgiving. We'll run it just like the boys booster tournament. It's run by the boosters as well for that. But it'll be 2 days, 4 games each day for JV and varsity girls. So that'll be nice because then we'll have a tournament for them and a tournament for the boys too. The sports banquet, we're actually going to do it live this year again instead of the virtual one that we did last year. The kids wanted that again, and we have the tent set up outside, so we're going to do that on June 24th at 5 o'clock. Fall sports signups are posted, so if you know any athletes, I also emailed every student from 6th grade through 11th grade next year and told them if they can't get to the sign-up sheet, just let me know and I can write their names in. The disc golf course is growing in popularity through the UDisc app. We've got people from as far as Fort Plain to one guy from Rochester came in to use it, so that's out there. And again, I just want to say the indoor batting cage was awesome this year, so thank you again to the Watts Foundation for the donation for that, because that worked out truly, truly well for all of our baseball and softball teams. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Broadbent?
Yeah, so the senior trip, Mr. Ray had said it was to Niagara Falls. The kids really enjoyed it. Many of them had mentioned they'd like to go back there on their own sometime and explore a little bit more. We had our prom on Friday night, Grand March. Grand March is up online if anybody would like to watch that. It was real nice seeing the kids enjoying themselves. Some kind of interaction other than kind of closed down as we've been. Senior banners, they're being printed this week. It took us a little time to get those. We're having a hard time securing some pictures for students. They are out to print, so hopefully we'll have those out very soon throughout the report. I don't know if I mentioned it last meeting, but we are now testing students for their driver permits here. Mr. Curry is able to do that. They take the test here. He prints them on a sheet and they take it to the DMV and complete the process there. But it's up to you, and we've had several students take advantage of that so far. Regents Week is coming up. We have 4 regencies and 2 checkpoint exams that students will be taking. We're going to start material collections, Chromebooks, and hotspots starting tomorrow and Wednesday for the students. And we have, we're implementing some credit recovery next week there in Regents Week. Working with Mr. Ray and Mrs. Butler in the cafeteria to get some students in before, after, during Regents to try to get them through the school year. Those students are struggling a little bit. Graduation, June 26th. Glad to announce that we're going to be able to give each student graduate 8 tickets this year. 8 tickets, and we're actually looking at maybe some general admission outside of the fence area. So your tickets would get you inside the track area, whereas the general admission would allow some other people maybe to come and watch from outside that area. And you have a letter in front of you, I believe Mr. Simpson put that for you regarding school's mascot. This was given to me by Randy Wood, and there's a list of names associated with it that would like us to discuss that if possible.
Yeah, we have that on for discussion tonight.
And that's it, actually. Does anybody have questions?
No questions? Ms. Holmes?
So we sent out our permission slips for the summer program. We sent out 46 total, and we received 37 of them back as yeses. 33 of those students want transportation, so I think the buses made a big deal of this. We got a lot of good positive responses from that. Our 6th graders went to the Wild Animal Park for their final field trip, and we are preparing them for their moving up ceremony. We did call all of the parents, and they all agreed, whether they were remote, hybrid, even the ones that weren't here. They're all coming back for that, so we're going to have time to get them all together one last time before they move on to the 7th grade. Our kindergarten registrations, we've got 38 packets total that were sent out, 33 were returned. And as of right now, all of our state and STAR assessments have been completed, so we're just wrapping up the end of the school year. We're doing individual field days by grade level outside for the kids, and I think that's about it.
Any questions? All right, thank you, everyone. All right, a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. first, Peter second, all in favor? All right, motion to enter executive session for appointment personnel matters, including review and appointment of employee and contract negotiations. Shauna first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve the resignation of Patricia Murphy, living environment teacher, effective August 31st, 2021. Janine first, Peter second, all in favor? Motion to approve the resignation of Tamara Smith Heronshaw, special ed teacher, effective June 30th, 2021. Carson first, Jessica second, all in favor? Appointments. Motion to approve the appointment of Emily Muller, special education teacher, 4-year probationary appointment in the 10-year area of special education, step 4 of the teacher bargaining agreement effective September 1st, 2021. Jessica first, Carson second, all in favor?
With the reservation for me.
Noted here, thank you. Motion to approve the appointment of Megan McCormick, mathematics, 7th through 12th, teacher, 4-year probationary appointment in the 10-year area of mathematics, step 3 of the teacher bargaining agreement effective September 1st, 2021. Janine first, Peter second, all in favor? Athletics. Motion to approve Todd Hoban, coach, varsity football, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Jessica first, Carson second, all in favor? Motion to approve Mr. Sayers, assistant coach, varsity football, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Shauna first, Carson second, all in favor? Motion to approve Mike Kerr, assistant coach, varsity football, step 2 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Janine first, Peter second, all in favor? Motion to approve Glenn Minor, coach, modified football, step 3 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve Adam Quinton, coach, varsity boys soccer, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Shauna first, Janine second, all in favor? Motion to approve Corey Young's coach, modified boys soccer, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Carson first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve Dan Capron, coach, boys, girls, cross country, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Janine first, Peter second, all in favor? Motion to approve Andrew Reimer, coach, varsity girls soccer, step 1 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Janine first, Shauna second, all in favor? Motion to approve Samantha Tazolino, coach, varsity swim, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Peter first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve Rebecca McCaw, varsity swim assistant, step 3 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Janine first, Carson second, all in favor? Motion to approve Alicia Braccio, coach, varsity cheer, step 2 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve Santina Santa Maria, varsity cheer volunteer assistant. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve Amy Dahmer, coach, modified girls soccer, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the teacher bargaining agreement. Carson first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve Teresa Sinikowski, volunteer assistant girls soccer. Shauna first, Janine second, all in favor? Motion to approve Shelley Hazard, volunteer assistant girls soccer. Carson first, Shauna second, all in favor? Substitute, motion to approve Deborah Lapata, substitute teacher, teacher assistant, monitor aide K through 12 from the district approved rate sheet effective September 1st, 2021. Peter first, Janine second, all in favor? Thank you. Motion to approve the terms and conditions of employment for Shelby Butler for School Food Service Director 1. Jessica first, Janine second, all in favor? Motion to approve terms and conditions for Felix Ray Jr. for transportation ground supervisor. Janine first, Shawna second, all in favor? Motion to approve terms and condition of employment for Kelly Crossett, school business manager and district treasurer. Jessica first, Peter second, all in favor? Motion to approve terms and condition of Karen Sheets, confidential secretary to the superintendent. Janine first, Peter second, all in favor? Motion to approve the bus purchase resolution for the West Canada Valley Central School District, offering issuance of not to exceed $298,505 for the acquisition of school buses. Janine first, Shawna second, all in favor? Motion to approve West Canada Valley CSDA Unit 7106 to open up the sick bank for their request. Shawna first, Janine second, all in favor? All right, we're going to move on to discussion items. End of the school year update.
All right. So I want to, this has kind of been a regular item on our board meeting agendas each month because, now it's the end of the year update, but it was updates in terms of COVID and the pandemic and for a whole year and a half here. This update, I think, is real positive to where we're at this point in time in regards to the school and moving forward into the fall. I know there was a lot of information that got released on a Friday night from the Department of Health that was going to the CDC, and we've been balancing that all year, this whole federal versus New York State, and local public health, and so forth. One of the things I've learned along the way here is there is absolutely no sense in trying to get ahead of this thing or trying to get ahead of things until all parties get their hand on this. And that's kind of what happened. Friday night they released that they're going to consider lifting masks in the last few weeks at the school. By Sunday afternoon, that got reduced down to the mask wearing outside the building and the indoor mask wearing must continue. So, we've been kind of following that guidance all year. So we released that. The outdoor mask release has been taking place. Was released from both the county level, the state level. And obviously from the CDC itself. So, we're down to the mask wearing within the building. There's no mask needed outside. I, at this point, obviously don't have the guidance for next September, but I would anticipate further releases of this. You're seeing all of the other things happen this summer. I know it's not the same thing, but the state fair is up to 100% capacity as of today. I hate to speculate, but I would certainly anticipate next year being, masks are optional. We'll be looking at the spacing in the rooms. I do think there'll be some regulations in terms of what we need to do, but I do not see it being anything that would restrict us at this time from running school on a regular schedule the way we always have run it with some safety modifications. So, based on the information that we're getting, I think that's a good thing in terms of moving forward with COVID. A couple other things, because of the release and regulation of things in regards to capacities, Mr. Doherty mentioned this in the beginning of the meeting, we've been able to bring in outside spectators to the outside sports here at the end. All of our ceremonies at the end of the year will be outside. The honors banquet is on Wednesday, June 20, what is it? 23rd, sorry. And the sports banquet will be on Thursday, June 24th. All outside, we have the large tent ready to roll, bigger tent than we had last year for those of you that got a chance to see that. Our capacity limits have been extended. Obviously, the mask restrictions have been lifted. Mr. Broadbent mentioned this in the beginning. We are going to limit to a certain extent, although it's less of a limit outside than it is in the auditorium. We're looking at around 8. We do want to create a situation where on the field, parents and close relatives are able to see their children and their grandchildren and not have too much capacity on the field. But it's looking like we're going to be able to allow others who wish to view that, or extended families from outside the fenced area, which you'll have a good view of that from the hill like you do with with football. So we have some opportunities to sort of expand our ceremonies. We're going to get a little trial run, obviously, with the honors banquet and the sports banquet. But it looks like we'll be able to be pretty full capacity for those that want to attend outside. And, we'll see how that goes. Last year, as you recall, we had to split the ceremonies. That's not the case. The kids will all graduate together this year. We'll be able to have our honors banquet, although it's limited. We won't have the refreshments and all the things that typically go with that, or the sports banquets. It'll be a true awards ceremony, and that'll be the extent of it. We'll have to check people in and so forth as they come in, but again, pretty normal stuff for us here. So I'm happy that we're looking to end the year that way in terms of our end of the year ceremonies. 6th grade moving up from Mrs. Holmes will be out there. Our pre-K moving up ceremony will be outside. So we're going to the tent's going to be set up on Tuesday. We're really going to utilize that from Wednesday through Saturday out there on the field. So it should be a great end of the year in terms of ceremonies, especially from where we were.
Will graduation be streamlined also?
Yep, so the graduation will be streamed as well, just like it always is. It was streamed last year, so we'll have the camera set up outside. That'll be live streamed for anybody that can't attend or doesn't live near here.
That's going to be a big area blocked off.
Just basically a center. We'll elevate it off. Yeah, probably a center section like we did last year that was taped off a little bit. And, yep. Most people, I'm saying most people will be able to probably fit who they want to come to graduation on the field. But there'll be opportunities for others to be there. We have space around the fenced area, and you'll have visibility to see that, especially where we locate the tent. So, any questions at all on end of the year and what we're looking into next year, as of right now?
Where will we be sitting?
I can get you on the field. I can get you up on top. Is that whatever seat you need? Like, I can get you. You'll be good to go.
We can go.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yep, you're good. All invited. All invited.
Did you have a question?
I did, just for next year opening up. I know this year was crazy with part-time, all day,
Yeah.
virtual.
Yeah.
What is the take for next year? No option for virtual?
Yeah, so as of right now, from a local perspective, no. The local perspective, we'll be back in school like we are normal.
So no virtual option unless it's like a emergency?
Unless it's mandated at the state level for us to do. So obviously, we have to listen to what the regs are going to be for next year. But in terms of where we're at this point, the immunizations are out there. They could be expanded. That's on our agenda for tonight too. The mask wearing, and obviously with COVID things can change. But if we were to ask me right now, I would see everybody back here next year enrolled in the building as usual. I didn't mention our bus capacity. That's one of the biggest issues that we have. We based on what I'm hearing and what we're going, we'll be able to. There may be some regulations on that, but I don't see that impacting any of our bus transportation next year. We should be able to get our buses back full and so forth. What'll be interesting for next year, I guess I could go a little further, is how quarantines and those kind of things that have been troublesome for parents and things, how we're going to handle that next year. So understand that if your class size goes from 10 to 18 next year to its normal size, what will be the quarantine? They've already moved a little bit at this point to quarantining specific areas, depending on what your distancing and your protocols are. So I anticipate that not being a huge issue, but that'll be another topic that'll be in question over the summer, is how they handle that situation. Any other questions at this point in time? I think that's everything I know in regards to the end of the year and where we're moving toward next year.
Capital project.
Okay, so the next two items on the agenda, capital project and CRRSAA and ARPA. I'm going to combine those two together, and I'm actually going to reverse it a little bit in terms of the federal funding and the capital project, and just an overall discussion on federal funding. So many of you, if you paid attention, and we've had some discussions about this, and this has really been, and there's still a lot of questions on this, but many of you have heard that the federal government has, and the state government as well, with some of the money they receive from the federal government, has put together basically two federal COVID relief allocations to school districts. By requirement, we're required to discuss those in a public session, which I'm doing tonight, to give you an idea of what those are. All of you board members, each of the board members, I should say, has a sheet that looks kind of like this in front of them. You can see that I handed out to you today. This is a breakdown. We had some people, our financial advisors, Dr. Timms and so forth, put together a breakdown of our money and where all this goes. And I want to go over this in the simplest form so it doesn't turn into a class on federal funding. But over the last 2 months here, we've learned a lot about how this is kind of working, where this money can go, the options that are available to this money. So the biggest number I want you to sort of look at, and Ms. Cross, correct me if I am wrong at any point in time throughout this, your total money for the CRRSAA, which is the federal money, am I correct so far, is $626,707. So you see that in your total.
Total of the first allotment.
The first allotment of money, correct. Then the American Rescue Plan Act, which is the additional funding, is money that is going through from federal to state to us. Is that correct?
The first 3 columns of the yellow are coming directly to us.
Okay. So if you look at those dollars that are there, you'll see that the total for that is $962,550, and then the next category is $934,000 under the state level, $461, which gives us a total of $2,137,649. Did I explain that correctly?
And that's coming directly to the district?
The first 3 columns, the ARPR,
Yep.
that's 1.2 million.
Yeah.
962,000 of it is discretionary.
So in the end, this money is being given to us in some ways, without getting into complete details, over a multi-year period. Most of which needs to be expended at the end of 3 years.
By 2023.
By 2023, okay?
September.
September of 2023. Now, there's some other restrictions on this. There is a limit on what you can spend in the first year, which is 62.5%, which is 50% of the overall total, and 12.5%, which is the minimum that's allocated for learning loss, correct?
That's the most you can spend in any 1 year.
In any 1 year. So again, and I apologize, I just want to make sure, because this is 2 months worth of studying in terms of how this can all be allocated and so forth. The biggest thing I want to talk about is this money is here. It's here for a couple of different reasons and things that we can spend money on, and I want you to understand where the money can go and where it has to go. So when you look at the third column, it says the 2021-22 enacted state budget allocations, and then underneath it in parentheses it says learning loss grants. You will notice that there is a state level reserve for summer enrichment of $133,497, and there is a state level reserve for after school programs of $133,497. Those are the $2 amounts that are exactly specifically earmarked for those things that must be spent over the period of time, not in the first year, but over a period of time in the next 3 to 4 years. 3 years, basically. So the rest of this money is allocated for a number of different things. It can be allocated for facilities improvements, safety improvements. Some of the money has to be used above and beyond that for learning loss type of things that we can do, research-based things, such as the Orton-Gillingham program that Mrs. Holmes is implementing in the elementary, which we will likely be using some of this for. So there is some earmark to this money, but in terms of how we spend it, there is some flexibility in terms of that, okay? And certainly we welcome any sort of public comment in terms of how we're going to use this money and so forth. Now, we have to turn this in terms of how we're going to spend it in a general sense soon. We obviously have some summer program things going on. We are looking into next year some after-school program things that we could get started with next year that we could use this money. And this is all 100% grant. The biggest thing I want you to take in all of this, though, is that you have, over a period of time, a fairly significant amount of federal money that has been allocated for the West Canada Valley School District. However, it has a expiration date on it. So whatever that money is spent on, and whatever sort of things it's used to support, if those are things that have ongoing costs to them beyond the money, that then needs to be picked up by that budget later on in life. So it's really important as you look at this money to understand, okay, we want to look at this learning loss, we want to get these programs in place, and we all know that there are things we need to do because of the last year and a half that we need to address. But we also need to understand that, although you can go out and hire a whole bunch of staff and put them in here, when the grant runs out, that money that you're paying that staff becomes part of your budget. So to look at this and say, okay, we're going to put $2 million worth of things into our budget and expect in 3 years for me to come back to you and say we got to support that now is not going to come out of my mouth. So when we look at these things, yes, we're going to look at this learning loss, we're going to allocate it, we're going to address it, we're going to look at the areas that we are, could use some funding to pay for in terms of education and instruction and research-based instruction and so forth. But on the other hand with this, we also have the ability, which a lot of districts I think are looking really close to, is to look at some things in the building in terms of air quality and things that are going on in this building that could be used to supplement things that maybe they weren't able to do before. Which takes us to our discussion about the capital project. But before I start in with facility discussion and how that's impacted by this federal money, does anybody have any questions? And I tried to summarize that the best I could, but I can probably answer some questions you might have in regards to this if there are any.
DJ, allocating the money, is it up to the district? Does the board have to approve the allocations of the dollars? Do we have to go out to public vote to use these dollars for if we do some, because we have our capital project, and if we can pull some things out, saying the last month when we discussed, we wanted to try to do everything, but if we can get some of these under the federal,
Yep.
we still have to.
So under the federal money, this is just money like we get every year in terms of aid. So no, there's no, we approve a budget, we approve this. What we do is part of our discussion, we seek input from others in terms of, how they would view this and what they'd like to see in terms of that type of spending. But no, none of this has to go to a vote or anything in terms of, this is allocated as we are directed as administration boards and things to do that. So there doesn't need to be any sort of approval on that. So to answer your question leading into the capital project, if we decided to use some of the funding for facility improvements and air quality type things, which I'll go over in a few minutes, yes, that would be pulled out of the project itself. We would still run it through as part of like our two-part project, which I'll talk about. But no, that part of it could just get done, and it could get done much quicker because it would go through facilities, and that money would be there in 100% reimbursement. So.
And plus, it's a lot of it's a one-time cost versus if we use this for something, then we have to continue to support it, so.
Correct. So as I get into the project, I'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll go through the items in which would fit into this grant and which we could pull out of there, which I sort of alluded to last month to all of you. But based on our work in the past month, I do have some more information. So with that being said, does anybody have any questions at this point or comments in terms of the funding, the money, and those kinds of things? I guess not necessarily in terms of capital project just yet, because I'll talk about that, but in terms of any of the other money that's there. Okay. So with that, I'll move you over to the capital project scope here, which has numbers on it and is colored that I put on your desk before the meeting here. I wanted to give you a little bit further breakdown in terms of what the cost of the items are and where those costs individually come to in terms of items that are in this project, proposed project, I should say. So if you look at on page 1 here, you'll see we start with the high school. You'll see the column that has the total cost. The next column over is in green is the federal funds, and the red is by district or total cost. So and I'll explain a little bit what I mean by that. So as you go down through this sort of number system here, you'll look at all those areas in green. We believe at this time will qualify under the federal funding. So we have a number of exhaust fans, obviously, which are the air quality items that we have on here. So you'll see an air quality in the high school gymnasium exhaust. You will also see the pool dehumidification unit and that green number that's on here, which is a part of our building survey that we have to get done with our building condition survey, would also qualify, we believe, under this federal funding because of the air quality in the pool area. If you go down through, you'll see the utility controls in this building to complete us over into the train system that we have here. Is a fairly large, another $500,000 there in terms of projected cost. Again, that would fit under federal money because they control everything that we do in terms of air quality and HVAC in here. You'll see there's an additional number of utility controls under that for $69,840. And as you go down through, you will see there are additional exhaust fans on that. So as you look down through, just in the high school, there are about $1.3 million worth of air quality things that can be used under the federal funding. There's one item in red on here, and that is drinking fountains, which has a fairly significant large number. We have indicated to them that that is something that we'll be pulling from the project. We have some different ways through, and again, this probably will be through some federal funding, but nowhere near any sort of thing where we can take away the drinking fountains and put filling stations in pretty quickly into those areas at a pretty minimal cost. So the drinking fountain piece of this, has also been removed from this project. If you look over at the second page, you will see in the elementary school we do have a much smaller number here, but we do have some exhaust fans. A lot of work was spent over on the elementary in the last part of the project, which, so it's not surprising again that we have some limitations on the amount that we can save there, but we do have some exhaust fans that need to be taken care of over there. And again, the drinking fountain situation over there, we're going to handle individually on our own for that. If you look at the bus garage, again, the exhaust fans are being looked at in there, and the heating units that are on this project, all under air quality things that can be put into federal funding. So there's another $64,000. So if you flip to the last page of this, you get to the items. I want to skip over the bleacher piece here and go to that middle column here so you get an idea. So as you look at this, you had a high school subtotal initial cost of $1.4 million, almost $1.5 million in high school work. We believe that about $1.3 million of that qualifies for the federal funding to take care of that. The elementary school subtotal is $422,712. We believe there's about $38,592 that can be taken care of in federal costs. Keeping in mind that we're also eliminating the drinking fountain piece. The bus garage work, we feel there's a work of $259,920. We believe we can take $64,080. And again, these are estimated projected costs out of that. And then there's some site work that's associated, obviously, with things that are out there in terms of bleachers and so forth. So the idea behind this is simply this. And if you skip down to the bottom, the base total of this project, by pulling out things that qualify in the federal money, has been lowered down to now $2.8,406,660 in terms of an estimate. The base with the high school auditorium AC unit goes up to basically 3.1 million. The base with the elementary school AC goes to 4.6, and the grand total for all of the alternates, which would be auditorium, elementary school, HVAC, and the base would be 4.9 million. So just to give you an idea, by using what we could use in terms of federal money, the original proposal that we looked at last month in terms of just the base scenario with no AC, nothing included in it, was $4,558,233 with nothing to do with air quality and so forth. So where I'm going with this is basically by pulling money out, leveraging the federal funds, you'd be able to get your project started earlier at no cost to anybody, without any true reoccurring costs, and in fact, probably some savings in the long term in terms of controls and exhaust fans and things like that. and get all the things you wanted to or potentially wanted to get done for right around the same cost and impact that we had before, which is right around that 1% impact that you had. Now, when I say that, okay, there are some items. There are these air quality items that include air conditioning and upgrades to HVAC and so forth, and there are bleachers on this project as well. So, as you look at this proposal, what I tried to do for you and tried to get you to a point was give you an opportunity to get all the things done at a cost that you were comfortable with bringing to the public for a vote at a minimal tax impact. And again, I look at this as potentially a worst case scenario situation like we do in terms of the budget. You know, in the end of this thing, I'd like to have no impact at all. And that's, you know, I don't want to say that I don't want to portray that that's what's going to happen, but in working through our last projects and over the time and leveraging the federal funds, I think there's some ways to get this down. But you'd be looking at, right around that 1% tax impact with, somewhere in the range of $4.9 million. Now, typically, if we're able to get estimates, and the estimates come in good, the work doesn't cost as much and under, we look at other items in terms of, okay, what work we able to do. In this project, we may be looking at this and saying, you know what, we underspent the $4.9 million. We basically got all the items done we wanted to get done, and we don't need to allocate any more money for any of that, and it goes back, which helps you to limit any sort of tax impact. So that's the story right now with the federal money. One other thing before I get into probably a whole bunch of questions you might have is I want you to look at the schedule that was provided to you. It says LaChase on the top of it. This is an updated schedule. It says LaChase draft, West Canada Valley 2021 potential capital project draft timeline. It's in color for you if you're able to find it. If you can't find it, I do have another one here if anybody needs one. Do you need one, Mr. Conway? You got it. So if you look at skipping down to June and August, you'll see in purple there the finalizing of the federal fund scope and the program requirements that would be in there. And then you'll see down below in purple, as you go down through, we'd be looking at September-ish, where we would approve this, what we're looking at here, and this is what we want to go to vote with. And then we would start our public notice period in the fall. We'd be working on, in the fall, the federal project portion of the design. We'd have the public hearing in August, and then the public vote would be in November of this fall. And then from there, going to the second page, you'll see if it's approved by the voters. That's where it gets rolling here, and so forth, and we get things in for SED review and approval periods. And we start to leverage some of that federal money pretty quickly. So the number of items that I listed to you under the federal money would get started first. We'd be able to start leveraging because that money is available immediately. We'd only be waiting on approval from SED and design, making sure all the designs from synthesis and LaChase are all set to go. The remaining portions of the project that weren't qualifying under the federal funds would be the part that would go out to the vote, and that would start on the timelines that are provided in this document. So essentially, if it went the way that I just explained it, your project using the federal money would start like a year earlier, because the federal money would be start to be spent, and then the capital project would stay on schedule like we were in terms of the project coming off and the new project coming on. And over the next 3 years, you would have all these things that are on this list completed. With that said, you still have some options. Obviously in this, you have base project. You have, some enhancements to your HVAC and air quality that are on here. You have bleachers that are on here. I know those were discussion items, especially when we were looking at numbers we weren't comfortable with last month, bringing to a vote. So I don't know if what I talked about tonight changes that thought process with you, but I'm open to any questions. I'll look into anything more you want. We'll go from there. Thoughts from anyone?
Well, I'm trying to remember last month, what were we looking at trying to get that's coming off the books, 4 million?
It's not a dollar for dollar change.
Correct.
But yeah, it's a $4 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were getting into that range, but it's a little bit more impactful because part of that 4 million that you used back with that old project was Excel money, which was like this federal grant money essentially. So you leveraged back in the day Excel money to get what you wanted done back then. So it's the same kind of thing. You know, we're going to get a lot of work done. You know, we're going to get $6 million worth of work done essentially for $4 million. But when down the road, when this comes off the books, you know, you don't have $6 million coming off the books, you have $4 million. So there's some comparisons and different terminology to Excel and federal money. The thing about the federal money, and the reason that I'm looking really closely is, you know, we've been talking since I've been here and even before when I was principal about air quality things, some things we weren't able to do. This does give you an opportunity to do that, and it's not a cost that necessarily has a reoccurring support that you have to do later on, which is, you know, you have a fairly significant amount of money here that's would not be rational to think we could just support in the long term.
Why 4.9 be 1%?
Be right around, yeah. And again, these are just projected costs of this, of that. Yeah, so when you get down, I mean, 4.5 was right around that 1% range. So maybe just a hair more than 1%. But again, those are projected costs in terms of those kinds of things.
So, any other thoughts? I mean, I'm pleased with what the work that we've had. So
This
far.
isn't final though, is it?
In terms of costs or list?
List.
Yeah. So
This is
nothing's final. You wouldn't
Oh.
approve anything until September, Mr. Kaplan. Okay? The real discussion here, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the essential items, which are all part of that base project that's in here, I think everybody's kind of in agreement, at least that's how I felt, that we're in agreement over, you know, the nuts and bolts of this place and facilities and the pool work to upgrade it and, you know, those kinds of things. The real question in the approval part, you know, during this time is, do you want bleachers installed out there? Do you want to enhance the HVAC systems to control the temperatures better in the elementary side building? You know, those are really the questions of that. I don't think your questions, and you guys, everybody can correct me if you're wrong, the $2.8 million in base cost that's left after pulling that out, I think we kind of discussed that that's, you know, we know that that's the stuff that's got to get done. And that falls within, you know, that actually falls under what's coming off the books. That's about where you're at minus the Excel from the previous project that's coming off. You know, so, you know, your questions are, do you want to move forward with the temperature control things in the elementary and the auditorium, or one or the other, and whether you're interested in the site work in terms of creating the bleachers out on the track and football field as well.
I thought we moved those to the bottom and moved the air conditioning for the elementary up.
Yeah, so they're not listed in terms of rankings. You know what I mean? So when you look at that, that's not necessarily what that means. Those are just taught. You know, you could do the air conditioning and say, you know what, we want to cut out the bleachers at this point in time.
So that 1 and 3 really means nothing.
What's that?
The 1 and 3
No.
really mean nothing?
No, they do nothing. Not in terms of rankings. They're just kind of categorical things.
Well, I'm good with the bleachers now. I wasn't really in favor of it before, but we do everything for 1%.
Talking about maybe not as big a bleachers.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely look at reducing the size of those. I can't remember, Ms. Cross, do you remember the seating number for that?
I wondered.
Was that what I told you? I didn't have that in front of me right now. So yeah, we certainly could potentially reduce that cost.
We have,
It's on here less than.
you know, we have air conditioning.
What's that?
So we can have air conditioning.
Okay.
And how long were we gonna put it in high school?
Well, I wondered about like the offices where everybody is all summer for the AC.
So for the elementary side, it would include the offices. You have nothing done on the high school side.
Not yet.
But you got a long ways before, another project falling through.
Well, maybe that's more important than in here. Yeah, totally changing everything around town, but, I mean, there's a lot of people working in those offices all summer where this is only used a couple times.
I don't have an opinion. The elementary, that's been on there. The auditorium's really up to all of you in terms of whether, if you're asking me how often this gets used during the heat, I don't know. One of the discussion items will be after this year is, are we scrapping the outdoor graduation? Are we scrapping it, or is that something that's become part of what we do here? Because people like it outside. I don't know how that looks either. You know what I mean? So,
The auditorium could be your backup.
yeah,
Have it
you know what I
outside.
mean? So there's, so in terms of,
Just get 4 tickets on graduate.
in terms of the use of this auditorium, I mean, you have some concert, you have some things, so I just don't know.
No, I'm fine with all of it.
What's your number on that? So your number is 231,840 on that right now?
Okay, did you need anything else from us?
Well, I just kind of, I got, what I need from all of you is, are we good at this time with continuing to tighten this up, move forward with all these items, and how did everyone feel about the use of federal funding to supplement project costs?
Well, yes, but it's also getting thrown on us. It's kind of hard to make a decision.
Yep.
Throw this on you and say, all right, now we're gonna spend this and that, but federal,
Yep.
You kind of want to run some
Yep.
other things through your head,
Yeah.
really what's going on out here.
Yep.
So for me, at this point, it's kind of hard to make a decision in 5 minutes.
Yeah, yep, understood.
Right, and last month we kind of were talking, and you were maybe some federal dollars coming to help
Yep.
offset, so
So-
we don't need to make decisions.
No,
tonight,
there's
but-
no decisions. I guess where I was going with this is based on what I said tonight, is this something you want me to, if we don't want to consider any of it at this time, I guess then I want to be able to say, listen, this is not something we want to spend, we don't want to look at our federal money. I don't need any decisions on the project. You're not even looking to approve this on our current schedule till September. And I can bring this back as an agenda item next month. You can look this over a little bit closer, and we can come back and talk about that now. And I can go back to Lache's synthesis and basically say, all the work you've done is still on the table here. I presented the federal money to the board. I presented the project to the board. They want to take some time to look it over, and then, we'll come back in July and have another discussion on this. And, as we get into July and August, we start to tighten this thing up and we get an idea of where we want. And hopefully by September, you'd have a project and so forth that you want to use. I'm perfectly comfortable with that as well.
I think that sounds good, bring it back next month.
Yep, perfectly fine with me.
All right.
Yep, thank you everybody for that.
All right, immunization clinic.
Okay, so, again, as we continue to work through the pandemic and COVID-19, and we get into the discussion regarding immunizations. Immunization clinics are popping up everywhere. You probably have seen a whole bunch of different ones at different schools. There's been local schools that have held these things. There's a really big push by both the New York State Department of Health and Herkimer County Public Health and all the county public health, I should say, for schools to create opportunities for immunization for, right now, students between the ages of 12 and 17, which has been approved, which is the Pfizer vaccine. So with that being said, as you know, there's where we started with limited immunizations, there are enough now. So basically, any school right now can make a phone call, get a clinic set up, and at their school, set the hours. Most schools are doing like a 3 to 6 type of thing. And obviously there's 2 sessions of it because the Pfizer vaccine is 21 days apart. It gets sent out, there's parental permissions, the parents come with them, they get the shots if they wish to choose, or if they choose to get those. And then they are given their date 21 days later to come back for the 3 to 6 slot, and so forth. One of the things I want to be clear in this discussion, and because I've had some phone calls from different people asking questions about next year, I have had no indication at all that immunizations will be required for students to return to school. There's been nothing at all, and I want to be clear with the public that's listening. I don't anticipate that being any sort of requirement to return to in-person school. What the state is asking is to provide opportunities for those who wish to get shots, and especially for the students who are returning in fall, creating localized opportunities for them in an easy, convenient way. But what I want to make sure is I don't want that to be construed with the fact that we're trying to pressure anybody into getting shots, or that you're required to get shots in any way, shape, or form. So I brought it to the table today because, it's sort of a topic that doesn't have to happen. We are not required. The State Department of Health asked in a survey whether we are going to be holding one, and if we're not going to hold one, why we're not holding those. I don't know at this point in time what the turnout would be. It wouldn't necessarily matter what the turnout would be in terms of public health. They'll just come on that day, and whoever shows up to get those, they'll have shots for them. So I guess my question, as a board, is there opposition? What my discussion, there was a push to try to get it done before the kids left, but I think that's more of a situation that really doesn't impact us here personally. Like our kids are still here locally. Some kids aren't necessarily, but probably could schedule a day in July and then another day at the end of July or the beginning of August for the second shot. Could get it here and take care of anybody who is looking for a free vaccine. It gives them easier access to that at this place. You go from there. Is there thoughts on that? So I would have to ask the Department of Health. I think initially the push is for that, but I know that there are some districts that have reached out and allowed the community members that needed to get the Pfizer shot to come here as well. That would just be a question of how many that I have. And I do know there was a local school district that offered this really quick. I did not do that really quick because I wanted time for people to process a little bit of this. And I think I was kind of right with that because they had 100 shots and they only had 7 people that signed up initially because it was kind of new. And they were kind of calling around saying, anybody want to come up to the school district and get their shot? Because we got 93 more shots if anybody wants them. So, I'd anticipate that number probably for some being a little bit higher, but I think potentially we could offer it as a community clinic here if somebody wanted to for the 2-3 hour periods. And it is the Pfizer vaccine. That's definitely what we would get. Thoughts on that? Is there any opposition, I guess? Is anybody reluctant to have that? It's not, again, these are conversations that I never thought I'd be having, but I am. Do you want to have an immunization clinic at school? And, is anybody opposed to that?
It's the parents' decision.
Yep.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
Offer.
Okay. So what I'll do is I will get on the phone with Public Health tomorrow, get those dates scheduled, I'll let you know, and then we'll start to publicly announce, when that's going to be open here. And again, I'll be clear in the messaging. This is not, one of the things, my fearfulness of it is that it gets construed as being, like we're having this because you need to have this to come to West Canada next year. That's not the case. This is just that, and I'll present that in that manner so people understand that this is an option for parents. It requires parental consent anyway, so. All right, thank you.
Tax collection.
Okay, so continuing with the sort of the pandemic situation. So our current tax collection is either done, Ms. Crossley, you can correct me if I'm wrong, either our tax collection is either mailed in or we have the option to go to M&T Bank to pay for that in person. M&T Bank is no longer going to accept in-person payments.
Why?
They've changed their policies, they're not accepting them at any M&T banks statewide.
So, we are left with a couple different options, and I want, and honestly, I'll do whatever the board thinks we want to do with this. We're looking at two options now. One of them, obviously, the mail-in option would still be there for anybody that wants to mail in their payment. We're looking into setting up an electronic payment system for people who want to pay that electronically through the computer. So those two things are pretty standard type things. The third option is, do we want to expand that? Is that good enough, or do we want to come back to creating a time period here at the school, which is really the only option again, and bring back some opportunities for people to have in-person payment back here at the school? Thoughts on that?
Could you do it so they don't have to enter?
So I guess the first question is, so there's a few things that we could do. The first question is, what is the value at this point, do we feel in this community of having the in-person option? Is that strong? Or is the mail-in option for everybody and the digital option for everybody enough for taxpayers? And do we have to offer, you're not required to offer that, is where I'm going with that. But I also don't want to completely eliminate that and say there's no other in-person option. These are the two options to pay taxes now. It's through our mail-in, which is already the same right now, or through the electronic option that we'll create for them to be able to pay online if they would like to do that as well.
Yeah, online.
Do we know how many went to the bank to pay? Is there any number that, how many were utilizing that?
I don't have a number, I could probably get one from the bank.
But you know what I mean, is there enough people to even?
I mean, the
because
times
we
are
got-
changing.
You walk to the bank, you pay your debt, I pay my taxes at the bank, because I walk in and do a bank account.
But nothing says I can't put a stamp on it, mail it out like you do your national grid bill too.
I think, times are changing, we have to do stuff either mail or electronic. I
Yeah,
just think we
kinda
try
what
those
it's going
options. To get into this, coming in person, you've got, you got all our security issues, now you're gonna be buzzed and then paying someone to man that versus that. I just say we try to do the mail and electronic.
The electronic does have a fee with it, but it's paid by the taxpayer. If they choose to make an electronic payment,
We let them know.
once-
we're
yeah,
mailing it or-
it'll be documented. We'll let them know that. I want to say it's 2% maybe, up to $5.
2% on the electronic transaction.
Up to a dollar amount of, I want to say 5, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I've reached out to them for information, I can do that.
Want to do that?
But they can mail it in.
Yeah, that's an option.
I agree with you though, with like the security and just random people coming in and out and how many people are really gonna do it?
That was the original reason we really looked into outside drop-offs, so that we had the security doors, we had all these different things.
Banking there, I get that, that's convenient, but they have to make an extra step just to come down here.
Was it an inconvenience to the M&T Bank in Newport?
It's not just Newport, it's
all
all M&Ts.
The whole branch.
They're not a community bank. They're awful.
Yeah.
They're
Just
international.
put a point blank, they're
Yep,
awful.
yep. You're getting into the internet, like you said, you're getting countrywide, international-wide bank type things. And they,
I would just do the 2 ways.
any other thoughts?
Those two options.
So the two options.
I agree.
Yes?
Yes.
All right, so when we send out that information like we do in our newsletter and we publish, we'll send out the two options. There isn't an in-person option this year, and it'll be a mail-in or electronic payment option. We'll go from there.
So we'll save that line item on our budget too, we won't have to pay the bank? Instead of paying them a certain amount?
No, we still have to pay them a per fee, a per transaction charge is what they charge us.
And how
But
much
it would
does that
only be
cost?
for the
Do you know what it
electronic
costs us
one?
this year?
It's just over 4,000. And that was with them mailing back receipts to everybody also.
What'd you say?
Did you hear that? So,
I hear.
Mr. Marco asked what the cost was for the the processing by M&T, and it was just over 4,000, which includes that mailing the receipts back to the state, back to the person.
We still have to pay them that?
Yeah, because they're still processing it all.
When you mail it in, where's it going? Buffalo?
Buffalo.
To the
That's
bank.
their,
So it's going to the bank, it's not coming to West Canada for.
it's made out to West Canada, but mailed to the Buffalo address.
I thought it was coming here, that's why I thought we would be
No.
able to say.
No, no, it's still, it's the exact same mail-in option you've had before. All right,
All right,
so we'll go with that option. Thank you, everybody.
all right, July board meeting.
Okay, I did a little research on the July, we traditionally have always combined our reorganizational meeting with our regular July board meeting, which, a lot of districts do it smart. You got 2 different meetings technically. Yeah, so we start the reorganizational meeting at 6, usually lasts about a half an hour, and then we reconvene the regular meeting at 6:30, just like we do. Where this came up is the second Monday this year was a little bit later for me. It was July 12th, where technically the new school year starts on July 1st. So I did a little research, because I thought that there was a date that the reorg meeting is supposed to happen on, and it does have to happen. It's supposed to happen on the first Tuesday of July, unless the board passes a resolution to hold the meeting within the first 15 days of July. Okay? So, we can continue to, so a couple different options with this. Okay? We can hold the meeting in July every year going forward, starting this year on the first Tuesday of July, if it's not a holiday. Or we can keep our second Monday scheduled. The difference being is the resolution that's in your packet, we would have to approve each year in June that we're going to hold it within the first 15 days. Okay, so if we want to have our meeting on July 12th, which is the second Monday of our regular scheduled meeting, all we need to do tonight is pass a resolution that we're not going to hold it on the first Tuesday of July. We're going to hold it within the first 15 days. All right, so I put that on the agenda because I want you to be in compliance with the reorg meeting. And we just kind of always went through, I didn't know that either, and I'm sure probably for the last 40 years, and the cops didn't come get us. But they, if we're going to do it exactly right, and we want to keep the second Monday in June, I'd put the resolution on and say we're going to hold it within the first 15 days. However, if you want to have your July meeting on the Tuesday, the first Tuesday of July every single year, you don't have to do anything, and that's the date of the meeting in July. Keep in mind that the first Tuesday in July sometimes will fall very close to some holiday season type things, depending on when that. So if the holiday were to fall on that Tuesday, it would be on Wednesday, kind of like we do during the school year, where we move meetings from Monday to Tuesday. So it's not a big issue here, it's kind of what you want to do with it. So if you want to keep it on the 12th, then Sean's going to read a resolution that you're going to approve tonight that'll keep it on the 12th. And if you want it on the first Tuesday, which is the specific requirement, you do nothing, and that's the next day of the.
Then we still have to do 2 meetings.
You do 2 meetings that night. Yep. You'd still do the 6 o'clock on that night and the 6:30 on the first Tuesday. Opinions, thoughts, anything on any of that?
You changed the date to July.
Yeah, we will on the resolution,
Yeah, we did.
So, do I have a motion for the West Canada Valley Central School District hereby votes to hold its annual reorganizational meeting on Monday, July 12th, 2021. Jessica first, Janine second, all in favor?
All right. You're all set. So July 12th is your reorg meeting and your regular meeting.
I'll do that. BOCES board,
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Lynch, you can add anything you want to this after I get done talking. You probably are familiar with this issue. So, and if I say anything wrong here, let me know that I'm wrong here. The current Herkimer School District had a board member resign for personal reasons. But that board member was also their representative on the BOCES board, vice president of the BOCES board, which created an opening, obviously, at Herkimer Central School District, which doesn't necessarily pertain to us, but it does create an opening on the BOCES board for them. So they are looking to recommend Sam Luce. Lucy, do you know that pronunciation?
Luce,
Luce, Sam Luce, who holds 2 master's degrees, 1 in Christian and Classical Studies. He's taught children and trained others to teach children for over 20 years. He's taught character education assemblies for 2 years in the Utica School District. As the father of 4 kids in the Herkimer School District, and his aim is to protect and provide for children and empower teachers to do the same. Herkimer is recommending his appointment to not only their board, I'm thinking, and to the BOCES board itself. Is that correct?
He did not get elected to the Herkimer board, 2 other people got it. He was the 3rd person for a 2-person board.
Okay.
Spot.
Okay.
So he's interested in.
But he's interested in being their representative on the Herkimer BOCES board. So he's not on the Herkimer School Board, he would just be on the BOCES board, representing Herkimer School District.
Which is what Dan was.
So, the district superintendent, Sandy Sherwood, asked all of the districts in Herkimer County to, just basically present this to them, and if there was any vocal opposition to it, to just make note of it to her. This is not an election, there is regulation that they can appoint this person, so, it would just be noted that there was opposition to the appointment, not necessarily that the person wouldn't get the BOCES appointment. Is anyone opposed to this appointment by the Herkimer School District to represent?
Is this a vote?
Nope. It's just an informal.
Picking a guy, right?
Yep, they're just picking a guy. Yep.
No one on the current board was
Yep.
interested.
No one on the current board is
And
interested.
this man was interested.
Yep. So I guess it's part of the requirement.
He's representing Herkimer.
Right.
Herkimer School District. Yep.
Okay, and West Springfield has 2 representatives, is that correct?
No.
Oh, they don't?
Miller, I can't remember his first name.
Yeah.
Bill Miller represents Little Falls, because Little Falls didn't have a representative.
Okay.
And they didn't have anybody, no community members wanted to do it. So Bill Miller from Richfield, who's also on SBI and another board, was interested, so Little Falls
Picked him.
picked him. And Saturday night, we lost our own deal.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay. Sorry to hear that.
She passed away.
All right,
Any further discussion on the BOCES board then? Okay.
All right, school mascot.
Okay, so I want to just kind of bring this sort of intro to school mascot discussion. Mr. Broadbent presented myself and the board with a letter from a former graduate of the West Canada Valley School District who basically shared a letter regarding the school district and the Board of Education to consider looking at their school mascot and wondering about it in regards to change and so forth with that. Duly noted, this was also shared, I believe, with media, social media, and so forth as well. All the board members here have read that letter. They have also seen the updated list of signatures that are currently on that list of alumni and others from that are in support of this change in mascot. So we put it on the agenda for a couple of reasons. Obviously, this is a topic that is something that's being discussed nationwide, statewide, locally in districts. There are districts that have changed their mascot in other areas throughout the state at times, depending on what their name was and so forth. I certainly, over the years here, have had discussion, not only from people who are, feel that it's time for a change of that mascot. I've had a lot of phone calls from people and discussions with people who are in support of keeping that as the mascot. So, what I want to say in this, and I know there was a lot of social media discussion about this, and people that are a part of this do feel strongly about it on both sides, which creates that sort of discussion. I'm very appreciative of Mr. Wood offering his opinion, but also stating that he's not looking at this as that he's right and everybody else is wrong. Using it more of, this is my thoughts on it, along with the others that have signed this, and understanding that there could be a different viewpoint on this. And I think that's important especially in this day and age where we seem to have a lot of division on certain things. With that being said, you know, I do want to mention this is a strong topic that is being discussed, obviously, at the state and federal. I know the New York State Education Department has this on their agenda pretty consistently. There is a new commissioner at State Ed now that is consistently putting this topic on their discussion in terms of, you know, where the state education department sees this in the school districts across the state, and what their viewpoint is on that. Now, with that being said, I have no idea to know whether any sort of regulation would ever be changed with that, which would basically require school districts to look into, you know, changing mascot names. I think there's a lot of complexity to that. I mean, we focus a lot on some of the key nicknames that are there, but there are others they're discussing as well out there in districts that aren't maybe as clear cut as maybe people think. So, you know, I don't know in the big discussion where that has gone. We have received letters in the past. I do see some of the names. We had addressed this as a board. At least some of you were on that board at that time with a letter received a few years ago. You know, so this is a topic that has been on the agenda. It's a topic that's been thought about by this board and by previous boards in terms of that discussion. I'm sure as time goes on, it will be a discussion that continues to happen and is, you know, a topic that will continue to be discussed. So that's really what I have in terms of background on the mascot issue at the state level. There is no regulation to change that at this point in time, but certainly myself, if things do change with that, I would certainly be, you know, as part of my job here to inform all of you regarding that. With that being said, you know, Ms. Schultz, do you have?
DJ, also, I think you asked for us. There is no process in changing a school mascot. It's really up to the board, and the board could change a mascot every year, correct?
Yeah, so there's no real regulation at this point in time in terms of changing nicknames, mascots, those kinds of things. The process really falls down to whether the board representing the community feels there needs to be a change. You know, and obviously these board members have been elected by the community to, you know, the community members that live in this district to represent them on the West Canada Valley School Board. And they're, you know, they listen to, you know, their discussions. I'm sure as many discussions as I've had about it, I'm sure our board members have had many more discussions with different people about this, you know, from both sides of the issue. So, you know, it's a tough discussion. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer at this point in time. It's not an easy question. You have varying opinions on it. I think the board here has been super respectful of all those opinions. I think they're open to listening to those opinions. You know, we've had public comment in the past on those types of issues. So I don't feel it's a brush away topic by any means, but I do, you know, I do understand the differing opinions on it as well.
I do want to kind of clarify, we were made aware of this out on social media, and that as a board, there were some comments made that we need to work. As a board, we were just presented this. From the media, we've had some emails, so I just want the public to know that we were not involved. We have not met and made any decisions. So I just want to clarify that because there were some comments out on social media. Secondly, as a board, in our follow-up, it's us to talk about, you know, as a board, do we, you know, want to continue with our Indians, or do we want to start a process of a new school mascot? I will agree, there has been a lot of both sides, and we understand both sides. So as a board, I'd like to have a discussion here, and we'll decide what we're going to do as a board moving forward with our school mascot. So I'll open that up for thoughts as a board. Any comments? We're in agreement that we will keep our school mascot, continue with our West Canada Valley Indian. but I'm kind of getting the sense from our school board. I know as DJ said, right now there is no regulation or law that we have to change that. Obviously, the commissioner or whatever, there are changes, then that would be another discussion because of state laws. But in the meantime, we can continue being known as the West Cannon Valley Indians, and I'm looking to our board members for agreement for that.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay, so, we will proceed with our, school mascot of West Cannon Valley Indians. And I appreciate the letter and your thoughts, and hearing from both sides, so thank you.
Either I or Mr. Broadbent will reach out to Mr. Wood in terms of our discussion tonight and where that went.
All right, thank you. All right, announcements. All of these will be outside in the tent on our football field. So June 23rd, we have our 6th grade moving up ceremony at 9:30 in the morning. June 23rd, we have our pre-K graduation at 12 and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. June 23rd is our National Junior High Honor Society Awards, grades 8 and 9 at 5 p.m. On the 23rd is our high school and our honors ceremony, grades 10 through 12 at 6 p.m. June 24th is our varsity sports banquet at 5, and then on June 26th, our graduation at 10 a.m. So those are announcements. Anything else that needs to be added? Okay. Now we are open up for public comment. We welcome any public comments that are related to the agenda. We ask that you be respectful of your time and our time. We ask that you state your name and where you live. Remember, you cannot identify specific staff, student, personnel, or board persons. If you need to address a specific situation, we ask that you contact DJ directly. Thank you. Do you have any public comments?
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Portia Camarillo. I live in Newport. I graduated with the class of 2020. And I would just like to, I'm not trying to attack anyone, but I would like to bring up the issue with the school mascot. I would love to do it in a loving, caring way, compassionate way. Again, no harm done. Did prepare a speech for this. So to many residing students, removing a mascot represents a transforming world with mindfulness of others. To alumni, it may be upsetting to see something from the past change, or you may not understand why it is necessary. I recognize your views and I hear your concerns. I once felt the same way and would be siding with you today if I had not met 3 wonderful Upper St. Regis Mohawk natives. These people welcomed and taught me incorrect and correct terms for their people with love and kindness. I hope to welcome everyone with that same kindness and love tonight, acknowledging both sides, and to explain to others the lessons that were taught to me by the natives themselves. I'd like to start with a bit of history before speaking on the mascot issue. Christopher Columbus landed in what we now know as the Americas in 1492. Upon arriving, he believed he landed in India, and I do have sources that I can show you guys if you would like to see them. He believed he arrived in India. Because of this, he referred to the indigenous and native people located here as Indians. However, they are not from the country India. The people that are from India are called Indians, just as we are Americans, or Italians from Italy, or Germans from Germany. Please let the people we speak of tonight be referred to as natives or indigenous people. Similarly, throughout history, the N-word has been used as a derogatory term to dehumanize people of color. It originated from slavery and working black people. Both are slurs that generalize a population. The N-word is deemed socially unacceptable today by many, and rightfully so. I urge us to apply a similar feeling to our mascot. It is a derogatory slur given to a population to separate them from their culture. I hope this explains why the name of our mascot may be offensive to some people. Next, I would like to discuss why the mascot itself is offensive to native culture. The current mascot wears a chicken feather headdress. Such a thing is a sacred item to indigenous people. Feathers are given to warriors after a battle if they have won or showed great bravery on the battlefield. To some, this may seem appropriate to fashion at sporting events, however, it's not. Indigenous culture is still alive and fighting for social acceptance today. In wearing these headdresses at games, meets, matches, pep rallies, and non-sport school events, we are making that acceptance harder for them. mocking a culture that we do not belong to. Our area may have history with Indigenous people. They may have lived here once, but that does not give us the right to appropriate their culture. Most of us are not even Indigenous. We are mostly descendants of European immigrants. We do not have a right whatsoever to determine what is or what is not offensive to Indigenous culture. If they say it is offensive, let us respect that. Let us be known as a school that took advances in acceptance of others with love and kindness instead of allowing negative stereotypes to influence our young minds. For further motivation in this decision, several other schools and national sports teams are removing their native or redskin mascots in exchange for a much less offensive alternative. The American Psychological Association, dedicated to making a positive impact on critical social issues, conducted diligent psychological research and found such mascots can have substantial negative effects on a child's development. In 2005, they asked others to take action in removing such mascots due to the conflicting messages children received. These mascots teach children harmful stereotypes, influencing them to belittle Native cultures or make a mockery of it. The APEA states that schools owning Native mascots, and I quote, establish an unwelcome and often hostile environment, and no one wants this for their children. The National Congress of American Indians similarly states, quote, rather than honoring Native peoples, these caricatures and stereotypes are harmful, perpetuate negative stereotypes of America's first people, and contribute to a disregard of the personhood of Native people, end quote. That comes from Indigenous people themselves. Let us respect their feelings and do not make the decision for them. Schools and national sports teams that are keeping these mascots are also facing lawsuits. Many cases can be found with a quick Google search. For example, this is an example of another local school that switched their mascot. In 2013, the Cooperstown School Board changed their mascot from Redskins to Hawkeyes. Why should we be exempt from this? The same could become a reality for our school. I would like to end my speech by recognizing the 250 Native children found in a mass grave on a residential school grounds earlier this month. Residential schools were a common tool used to strip Native children from their culture, often subjecting them to sexual abuse, torture, and beatings. I know this because my friend's grandparents are residential school survivors. We cannot imagine the pain of their communities, of their people. Let us harm no further. Let us join together and honor a past that is so near and dear to many of us present tonight. In place of the current mascot, I offer sacred animals that are honored in the Indigenous cultures that once existed in our area. The coyote, the eagle, and the raven. All may still honor our past without causing harm or offense. I have gathered all my information from accredited articles tonight that I have included in my sources, as well as from 3 Indigenous women themselves. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have 2 others. Should I state their names?
Yep.
Okay. From Jennifer Scanlon, why were the Indians removed from both of the signs as you come into the school driveway?
Are we talking about the digital signs, did she say?
She doesn't.
So I can address this. This is Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Scanlon, if you're listening, you could give me a call on that just for a little bit more specifics, but nothing was really removed. If we replaced some signs or we have new digital signs, that may have been the way that it was written on there, West Canada Valley, but there was no, direct intent to do that.
The other one is from Terry Kinsella. It just says, will all the seniors be recognized on the marquee out front of the school this year, or is this only for the honor graduate accomplishments?
Mr. Rob, do you know, I believe all of the seniors are on there right now.
I don't, based on this question, I don't believe so. I think it would just be undergraduates.
It's just the honor grads.
Which I can take care of.
Well, a couple things. The honor graduates were just released, so that's when we put those up. So if there's some interest in having, as we did last year with all the graduates, that's something we simply can definitely put up there.
We just secured a lot of the senior pictures last week.
Yeah. So if you didn't hear that, we didn't have all the senior pictures at that point in time and so forth. But we put those up when those were initially announced, honor graduates. But
I'll work on that.
yep, we certainly can do that.
What signs was she asking about?
I'm not sure what she's
I think
referring
it's
to.
the old white one that used to be in front of the cafeteria, it used to have the two Indians on each side.
Oh, it did.
But that's
So we have a
been
new,
replaced.
we have a new sign, right?
Yeah.
Out there, yeah. I think those were just replaced signs that were there. So, and there was no intent with that at all, it was just, that's the way the signs do.
That's all I
That's all? All right. I need a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters and a contract review. Jean first, Sean second.